Hey guys, here again with a demonstration of our last part of speech. So I'm going to read this card first and then talk about a few things before we continue on. So this reads, "You will hear this drop of water fall if you are silent for a moment." So I'm going to take my drop of water, see if we can hear it fall. Okay, that's a lot of drops of water, but we heard it. So I'm going to take this piece of paper, hopefully it's not too messed up, dry it off a little bit, and I'm just making a cut here so we can look at something real quick. So we used a word in this card to combine two phrases, and that word is if. So words that we use to combine two or more phrases are called conjunctions. So conjunctions connect. They bring things together, right? So when we talk about conjunctions, it's really important to discuss two types of clauses. And a clause is just a group of words. So not to get confused by that term. So we have a dependent clause if you are silent for a moment, right? And then we have an independent clause. You will hear this drop of water. So if you notice, I just took the phrase directly from this card using our conjunction if. And if I put them together, I can write it either way too. If I break it up with the independent clause and the dependent clause, I can put them in any order. So I could say, you will hear this drop of water fall if you are silent for a moment. Or I could switch them and I could write it this way. All right, if you are silent for a moment, you will hear this drop of water fall. Okay, if you notice, an independent clause is defined as a clause, it's basically a complete sentence. A dependent clause is not a complete sentence. So if you are silent for a moment, that is not a complete sentence. And you can read it to yourself out loud and usually determine, well, is that a complete sentence or is it missing something like a subject or some other words that we need to make it complete. So if you look back here, I have written above an independent clause, just so we could show for the sake of these cards. An independent clause is a complete sentence. And then I wrote the word parent, and my poor illustration of a stick figure of a parent. But an independent clause is really, it's like a parent or an adult. So someone who does not need anyone else to help take care of them. Like it's tax season right now. If you see on your taxes, it says, can anyone claim you as a dependent, or can you claim another dependent? So a dependent clause is an incomplete sentence. It's like a baby with no parent, which would be disastrous, right? Because a baby can't take care of itself. So this dependent clause is scrambling around the place looking for somewhere to go to be complete. Like, where do I go? This doesn't make any sense on its own. If you are silent for a moment, what does that mean? Right? So if you are silent for a moment, here's the parent. You will hear this drop of water fall, which is what we demonstrated just now. So it's really important to be aware of these independent clauses and dependent clauses, because they're important when we talk about conjunctions and when we use them. Also, I'm not going to discuss it at length in this video, but there are complex and compound sentences, and those are variations of independent clauses with dependent clauses Um, and you can never put two dependent clauses together. That would be like asking a baby to watch another baby. It would be chaotic. It wouldn't happen. So you always need an independent clause up here with a dependent clause. You need that parent with its baby, right? So think of it that way. So I'm going to read this next one and demonstrate. So ask your friend, and I'm here by myself. I'm just going to ask myself, or you can ask me, pretend that you're going to ask me to count to 3. At 3, I'm going to clap my hands and stamp my feet. Okay, so I'm going to do that first. 1, 2, 3. All right, so I perform those 2 actions because it asked me and stamp your feet. So I clapped my hands and stamped my feet. Ask your friend to count to 3. At 3, you either clap your hands or stamp your feet. So 1, 2, 3. So I'm just doing one of the actions. So again, here, conjunctions were and, either, and or. Would you like to have coffee or tea? Right? So choices of 2 or more. So I'm going to read this card. It's very similar to the previous one, but it has a lot more conjunctions. Ask your friend to count to 3. At 3, you neither clap your hands nor stamp your feet. So 1, 2, 3. So I neither clapped my hands nor stamped my feet. Ask your friend to count to 3. At 3, you not only clap your hands and stamp your feet, but also whistle a tune. So 1, 2, 3. So I clapped my hands. I not only clapped my hands and stamped my feet, but I also whistled a tune. So that's a lot of actions we're putting together. And so you can see these conjunctions are words that help us to combine sentences, but combine actions. Because sometimes we don't want to list each item alone by itself and just say, can you clap your hands? Can you stamp your feet? Can you whistle a tune? We could just put it all together. All right? Or we could say things like, oh, I love tea. I love popcorn. I love watching movies. So we can put those all together. I love watching tea, eating popcorn, and watching movies. Excuse me, I love drinking tea. So the next card says, tell your neighbor that you like to go to school. Tell your neighbor if you like to go to school. So again, that conjunction if is making it conditional. In our earlier demonstration, I said, if you are silent for a moment, you will hear this drop of water fall. If you practice a sport, you will perfect it. You'll get really well at it, get really good at it. You stand in the middle of the room, ask a friend to try to pass you very quickly so that you cannot touch him. Right? So our conjunction here is so that. Ask the teacher or someone, a friend or someone close to you, to whisper a command. Listen in perfect silence in order that you may hear the command. So in order that is very similar to so that. And our last one here, you walk among the tables while your friend stands still behind his own chair. Now you start to leave the room. Your friend will block the way, compelling you to stop when you are about to cross the threshold. So the threshold is right here, like this doorway, where one room meets another at a doorway. So again, these are our conjunctions. It's important to remember our independent clauses and our dependent clauses, and take a look in a grammar book, or if you have your own textbook, at compound and complex sentences, and practice these. Your most common conjunctions are and, but, so, right? I like tea and coffee. I like tea, but not coffee. And you can also use but also to as in the affirmative voice. I like tea and coffee, but also uh, green tea or something else. So again, these conjunctions are important um, to combine actions, and it's also important, like I said, to be aware of these two types of clauses, independent and dependent clauses. Thank you guys very much. Have a good night. Stay safe and healthy. Bye.